Welcome. Side B, inserted. Welcome to Dungeon Master. I had to spare you from saying what I thought you would say, so deal with this for a minute. We had a commercial. That commercial is for breakfast, that you should all be having breakfast or have had it by the time we conquer this maze, which actually I don't think I'm going to take you quite to the end, but that will go close to the end, is that we skipped ahead to level 17 without gaining a level, and that our men have many things in their inventory list that are different than the first round, that we went through entirely the beginning to the first round halfway point, and now here we are at the end, is interesting because that part 17 appears on the end here, and there was a big mummified monster I just veered away from, but this is Dungeon Master as we saw from side A, and that it's 31 side B is really confusing because now there's things that we would have never imagined we'd see in the dungeon and that we'd have to fight them or that's us or what that thing was is really a runaway mission because we could have clobbered him, but that he looked confused at where he was. This is the capitalist part of the game where all the treasure chests appear. And that there are treasure chests in this dungeon is really making me wonder if this is really even the end of the Dungeon Master. That it's not an end of our Dungeon Master for at least 80 episodes, or 85 episodes it looks like, or 81 episodes, no matter who's counting. 81 episodes is so much more than half, that we're not even halfway through the game, and here we are stumbling through the Dungeon Master Final Dungeon. This is not my Dungeon Master Final Dungeon, but this Dungeon Master that we've already seen of a Dungeon Master, and the Dungeon Master's Guide is where the words Dungeon Master come from, but that's not where Hitchhiker's Guide to the Dungeon Master supplements will. Actually, it can be read with the guide, preferred that way for this version of Dungeon Master. But I'm excited to bring you what happens at the end of this. Means that maybe there will be manipulation to the steering. The steerage takes a loose.
And that will open these, which if I recall...
That I don't know where to begin this epic journey through the tunnel, but that there's 2 minutes means that I'm going to put it here. Now, I don't know if this is going to burn me all the way to where I need to go, but I'm letting it go because this dungeon is getting considerably harder. There's electric bolts, there's bosses, there's threshold guardians, we've got the elixir, we've got the mega elixir, we've got the souls, we've got the shields. One is dead from running into lightning, that we need to bring them back to life is true, that we couldn't have come all this way just to lose our whole team, but Gottmog and Syra have passed us through the lightning. Ride the lightning, here we go. That this is the last of all possible dungeons is not an option for our Dungeon Master, but that we had to see the beginning and the end. Makes me wonder what just happened there. Now, that we saved our game and all our guys died doesn't mean we have to play this again. That we're going to get through it this time means that Dungeon Master 17 hasn't failed us at the end of the game. That we've arranged our potion with our gold key and put our treasure boxes in hand, we can build our stamina back up and heighten our status, and that our status in hit points, stamina, and endurance are all the meters, that only Syra has a low meter because she hasn't drank her potion yet. That I'm saving my game before I go into this evil, harrowing end of the game doesn't make me feel any more settled that this is the time that I will get through. That I just got shot by a firebolt, only came back to my energy 2 seconds later, and that these devil imp, shrill dog, Cerberus, evil things are in my way, and I have no need but to get through this dungeon. Means I just hit the ending again. And I don't think that was the real ending of the game. But that I saved it at another point means that I still might get through this dungeon, and that the tension as to whether I will or not exists in this meter here, which Dungeon Master 17, Bringing Balance, is actually Dungeon Master 31, The Journey Through Dungeon Master, and that it's not the final journey. We haven't thought of what 31 should be yet. Should it be the final journey through Dungeon Master? Should it be like, I tried to hitchhike Dungeon Master? Should it be, this guy's the devil that's going to kill me until he turned into the Dalai Lama? And back to the devil, maybe my own guy in armor. That he turned into Jesus was acceptable for Dungeons and Dragons, because then we all know he's really Joseph of Arimathea. That his staff is burning and not at half-mast is to prove that we may have actually come to the end of the game. That this reminds me of the end of the game is not to conjecturize that I've seen this footage before, because I have, and that this could be the ending of Dungeon Master 17, which is the end of the video game broken up into segments. I had to segment this out from being Alpha to Omega is already making me wonder what we should call Dungeon Master 31 Side A and Side B. Vote on it now and send me your drift. But I just got it. Dungeon Master 31. The Way of Dungeon. The Way of Dungeon? No, I don't know. The journey through Dungeon Master has brought us to a stopping point soon. That we are picking up that this balance of collections is somehow easily meted. That we have an entire minute left of meter, and not much to say about the running out of the clock, is that we needed 2 minutes of meter to really get us to the point of where we're going, that this ending is so full of graphical information, but that some of it only moves means this ending must have taken years to make. That I think I remember doing something like this ending is because this ending alludes to another game, but is the ending of Dungeon Master, but not our Dungeon Master. The version of Dungeon Master we had to play to even understand Dungeon Master. And it would be reiterated again that Amsterdam's Dungeon Master is not for anyone except those on death penalty that risk dying while playing Dungeon Master. If you risk dying already, then you can play Dungeon Master, because they're real battles that will leave you swoon, and not always will there be a save point or a potion. That was a really clever ending, and I really like what...
End of the game, huh? Much sound effects, the end of
Well, what do you got to talk about it, fool? It's not like you were there at the end of the game. You just played it and beat it. But there's another. There is another. We're playing now. We're not done yet. There's more than meets. There's a sequel to Dungeon Master 17, but it's not Dungeon Master 18, it's Dungeon Master 2. And we're here to sample it, to see if we can ride out Side B any farther. That it's got icons and logos, and that we've played this a long time ago, not as long ago as the original Dungeon Master, or the Amsterdam Dungeon Master, or the Dungeon Master Guide game, or the Dungeon Master's guides that describe the Dungeon Master guides in the Dungeon Master series. That the Legend of Skullkeep is getting closer to the title we're looking for. But now we're journeying into the new mazes of Dungeon Master 2, and then we track down to a thing that is what is yesterday, but is once lost, is now tomorrow's bigger inventory board for the sequel. That we can drag this and drop this further along will make us farther into the dungeon. That we don't have a torch is kind of messing with me in the darkness. That I don't know why I can't seem to take it steady on the screen that links with my screen, is because I still have a feeling that we have a time constraint, but that there's no real time constraint for Side B, is that Side B looks like a longer disc. that side B won't run for a reel is not to be ashamed that it won't run for 14 minutes like we had predicted the other one had, but that this one runs longer than 10 is already duping out the reel that is side 1 and side 2. But to dupe out the reel that is side 1 and side 2, we must further follow Dungeon Master, and that it's so complicated to equip things, and that you have to equip things in any order at all is such chaos, and that you have to find the elements of magic to go with the magic spells on each equipment piece icon, and that each equipment piece icon must go with a different order of the magic dimensions that will scoot around the statistics of Ciri, Saros, Bane, and Tormund, who are our characters. That this is strange because we didn't have the same characters in Dungeon Master 1, but we did see the end of Dungeon Master 1, and that was Dungeon Master 31A concluded, that 31A concluded, and 31B runs at the beginning of this version. For 31 concluding doesn't mean we've had enough on the backside to really justify that side B is a longer edit. So, now we're getting interesting. Because if we go here, somehow hit... Yes, we can do that. We can find another shrubbery. That another shrubbery is in our way doesn't mean there aren't secret doors back there. And this seems as hard as the Dungeon Master final issue of last game, that they get harder as they go. It does remind me of Dungeon Master that the next level 32 will be even harder than this no escapes brawl that we're having with time limits and the exciting things we see. That this is the Threshold Boss Guardian is not to say that there aren't many of them that are trying to skull plant us. And the skull plant octopus squid is really mixing it up in how it can make graphics appear on a computer. I've seen this somewhere before, and it's not easy. That you have to be constantly digging up your character stats is what I've been trying to say on Dungeon Master levels 1 through 31 all along, that we'll never make it to 112, the end, or whatever it is at the end, if we don't just realize that level 30 still needs quicker character actions, and the quicker character actions would rid us of this octopus demon that haunts us. For the rogue. The rogue is interesting because the sword is the rapier, and it comes to you like a snicker snack with the Vorpal blade. And that a Vorpal blade is not really a scimitar, but there are scimitars later to be found. That scimitars are to be privileged, and that at this level in the game you're lucky to have a happy dagger. And I don't mean the happy burial dagger, I mean to kill enemies, which are monsters. Now let's talk about monsters. Monsters appear as Threshold Guardians. The Threshold Guardians can range as a minor Threshold Guardian, a major Threshold Guardian, or the Dark Lord of Threshold Guardians. The Dark Lord of Threshold Guardians is probably a dragon and cannot be reached or defeated, is why Dungeon Master can go on even when this 31 level reaches its topmost level, which will be increasingly interesting, maybe as difficult as some of the levels they may be. But the Threshold Guardians have come to us all in forms of either small monsters, minor Threshold Guardians, big monsters like vampires, major Threshold Guardians, and Dark Lord of all Threshold Guardians, which outside the dragons called is a dragon, that we cannot predict that and don't know what the unknown evil beyond the universe is because it's the Dark Lord Threshold Guardian that kills you instantly. That even thinking about it kills you instantly makes me wonder how long this scroll is going to scroll out. Because if this scroll scrolls out, I'm thinking we got a chill position. Because our position is just to follow this through the maze, and he looks like he's going strong. That he's going strong through the maze is the perfect way to adjunct an episode of Side B, when Side B is noticeably longer now. But that the goal of Side B 31 is to just solidify the Dungeon Master of 31, and that now we're still lopsided. That it's longer, yes, but does the original clip outrun? The original clip of B was beating Dungeon Master 1, we must remember. that we're all the way through Dungeon Master 2's beginnings is not to say that we don't have an epic length to get through Dungeon Master 2, but we cannot necessarily defeat it, for we have defeated Dungeon Master, the video game, for that specific computer, as this game has been made several times. And that this is the official version is only to say that there aren't versions for the Atari that we explored already and were more difficult, and yet not. That each has their own difficulty and certain things have their advantage. This has the advantage of an inventory screen of a character builder chart to keep track of your items, your food, your belongings, your armor, your magic, and that we have this on Dungeon Master 2 arranged more than Dungeon Master 1 that was just beaten only 8 minutes ago, and that 8.5 minutes are coming around from the opposite side. Coming around from the opposite side has no means of bargaining that we are not going to the end of this yet, if we ever do, because it may be a dead end that we approach this game with fear and trembling is not to say that we don't have more room to talk. But I just want to say that this music in the background is interesting to me on 31. Because don't you notice it's been playing these like popular and not so popular songs, and that we're on the KMSA revamped feed that we saved underwriting it? That Dungeon Master knows the underwriter of KMSA, and that lends him all this official music, this officially usable music, this groove to the tune of music, and that it's the Dungeon Master Bard who selected this station, knowing that if the stereo land of Dungeon Master were to fire up its KMSA 91.3 Grand Junction, Colorado roots, that this game is not coming to you from Grand Junction, Colorado, but obviously from the Grand Guignol of Denver, is only because I'm channeling it from the past to the future, and that all the other Dungeon Masters crapped out at either level 7 or 4, which is 11 levels, and boy are we past 11 levels. That there was a third Dungeon Master, that this Dungeon Master had to get 22 in to get twice as many, is not saying that we're not on 31 now, and 33 is a long ways from the original series, even though these Dungeon Masters were 5 times as long and drifted into oblivion. That more comparisons with the rest cannot be made, because once you get past the character builder scene, which has the Avril Lavigne phone call that she records on there for a favor to me, and that I almost paid her for the part, but we just smoked each other out, means that the other voices, the witch has been still my guide, but no longer of a certain upkeep that I swore for, because my defense of the dark arts had to get stronger in the face of her outrageous black magic, while Avril Lavigne was only using white magic, and all she ever eats is lettuce. But if I was her, I'd eat lettuce too, and I like lettuce and I eat lettuce. But that I need more as a Dungeon Master for sustenance is why I'm playing Dungeon Master 2, so I can get a bat sandwich. If I kill that bat, I can get a bat sandwich, roast the bat on the on the grill. Dungeon Master has no microwave, it's a grill. Grilled bat for lunch. If we have grilled bat for lunch, we'll be all revived. And we may come back to this, I don't know. But the other voice, Aurora, didn't know she was a voice till I told her and approved. However, that they're on the Wikipedia article approves them all. That it doesn't really matter. That only one remained, and I think we all know who that is. And 2 will come again in some future when the dark arts die down. And when the white magic prevails and no one harms each other, it wouldn't matter because the Threshold Guardian's minor, and that we haven't seen a Threshold Guardian major in Dungeon Master 2, but we saw the Dungeon Master Guardian of Part 1, and that we saw the Dungeon Master of Part 1 is word to me that we saw the Threshold Ultimate Guardian of the hardest one, which is the less interface. That this is harder but easier because it's smoother in its running is not to say that you can measure it both either way and not catch up to the fact that we played a major Threshold Guardian in epic form, and that we're running out of time again. means that we've made it a real, and that this whole 31 has become some kind of 30-minute quest is good for us. Because we hadn't had 30-minute quests for a while, did we? I mean, I could skip to the ending now and make this really long. But then I'd have to say the next time we meet, and that I was only planning on having an uneven more amount, by a little percentage, of Dungeon Master 2, that was not just a preview of what would happen